What's up? I'm Kofi Outlaw, and welcome to Comic Book Nation, the official podcast of Comicbook.com. I'm here with my host, Matthew Aguilar, and Janelle Wheeler.
Hey, everybody.
What's up, everybody?
I'm sorry. I'm
off to a great start.
Yeah, I know. Great start. I'm just excited. This is the weekend. Zack Snyder's Justice League is now out there, and we have a lot of discussion, even though we did a special bonus episode breaking the movie down. We need to clean up some things and talk about some things with this movie still. And we've brought in a very special guest to help us do that today. So let's just go ahead and bring in him right now, Mr. Deathstroke himself, Joe Manganiello.
Yay.
How are you? Great to be here.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Just getting into it, like I said, Zack Snyder's Justice League is now here. It's out. This past weekend has just been filled with the hype for this film. Fans seem to be loving it. At the same time, we've kind of come into the situation this week where it sounds like Warner Brothers, on top of this hype, is also kind of indicating that maybe we're not going to get more of what fans seem to be calling for from this kind of Snyderverse, as we're calling it now. Can you just tell us, how are you feeling in the midst of all this, now that the film is out and everything and all the fan response to it?
Well, I'm really excited. Number one, I want to give a big shout out to Zack Snyder for including me as a part of Justice League this time around. 4 years ago, or when it was released, I wasn't a part of Justice League. I was the villain in Batman, and we shot a scene that was going to be tacked on at the end of Justice League to debut my character and then preview what was going to happen in Batman. So I wasn't really a part of Justice League. It wasn't my movie. So getting a call from Zack 4 years later to put the suit back on and be a part of his Snyderverse, if you will, that was really cool. And I'm glad that Zack had the opportunity to come back, and that's due to the fans and their support. So this is really an unprecedented experiment in the history of film where the fans' voice was heard. And here we have this epic superhero movie as a result.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to ask you. We've kind of heard some kind of slightly funny stories about how you guys actually put together the new material that featured you for this version of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Can you talk to us about how you guys filmed that?
Well, what funny stories have you heard? I think why don't you go with that?
We've heard it could have taken place at a unique shooting location, which could have maybe been your driveway.
Not in my driveway. We shot. We shot in a secure location. It was all with COVID protocols, so it was the way you would imagine some sort of like hot zone military base, where we had people coming to our houses to COVID test us multiple times during the week. Then you show up, there's a checkpoint, you get COVID tested again, then you come in, you take another rapid test, and then you wait. Once you're cleared, then you can go put the suit on and get to work. But we were all there together under COVID, very strict COVID protocols.
Can we just be honest? Kofi is just trying to get latitude and longitude so he can go take a selfie in front of the place. That's what's really happening right there.
Yes, we'll save that for after the show in my next phase. I'm sorry, I said it was your driveway. We had heard it was Zack's driveway, not your driveway, that this all took place in.
Who said it was in Zack's driveway? That's funny.
The internet, where apparently all things are always real all the time. Yeah. So you mentioned the Batman movie that you were originally a part of, and we wanted to ask you, because this cut, the Snyder cut, actually leaves the door open for that again, with your kind of post-credit scene with Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor and kind of finding out who Batman is. Forget about what may happen. Can you just tell us, what was it you guys had kind of played around with back in those original plans that kind of really excited you about the Deathstroke Batman project?
Well, I want to say that the scene that you see in this Snyder cut is the actual scene that we shot. When Batman was canceled, unbeknownst to me, they went in and put Jesse in a bald cap and shot him super tight. and changed all the dialogue to advertise a Justice League Part 2 movie that I didn't know about. I thought the scene was cut. Once Batman was canceled, I thought, okay, well, we're just throwing that scene out and no one will ever see me as Deathstroke. But unbeknownst to me, the studio had reshot it and ADR'd it to advertise this Justice League 2 movie. And I didn't know. I found out like 2 weeks before the movie came out that I was back in. So the scene that you see is actually the restored. That was originally what we shot. And sometimes when you change things that much or ADR them, they don't work harmoniously the way that they were intended to. The performances are kind of off and it looks chopped and rushed. And that's what I thought the original scene really was. I was kind of disappointed in the original scene because it wasn't what what was initially intended. So the fans will get to see what actually the original ending.
Awesome. And what can you tell us about just what kind of things you and Ben Affleck back then were playing around with for ideas for that solo film? I know we may never see it, but a lot of people would like to know the what if, could have, should have's of it.
I've talked about it a little bit, and maybe that's what you're alluding to. But we talked about Tim Miller's Arkham Origins. So shout out to Tim Miller, who's a buddy of mine. We actually just worked on a secret project together that I'll probably be able to talk about sometime next year. So maybe I'll come back on.
Nice.
But,
yes, please do come back.
So Tim's a buddy. We actually met and bonded over his Deathstroke video, which is actually how he got the Deadpool movie. And then that was going to be a basis for what the combat was going to look like in the Batman film. So Ben and I definitely talked about that. And then I read most of the Batman script as it was at the time when I was shooting Justice League that summer. I read a bunch of it and I knew what was going to happen in it. I don't know how much you want me to say about it.
Anything I want to hear. I mean, as you heard, I want to hear all of it, obviously. As my co-host already outed me, I would love to sit and hear about this all day. So, yeah.
Well, it was the premise, as you could kind of like infer from the proper Justice League end credit scene. Slade is summoned by Luthor, who offers a peace offering of information to Slade. He knows that. So basically, Slade had lost his son, and he blamed Batman for it. Batman had a hand in it. And Luthor summons him to his yacht and gives him a key piece of information that Batman's secret identity is Bruce Wayne. So now he's setting loose this unstoppable force on Gotham City and Bruce Wayne. And the Batman film was going to be kind of similar to imagine if David Fincher's The Game was real.
One of my favorite movies.
Systematically dismantles Bruce's life and starts murdering all the people in it as he destroys his finances and just basically paints him into a corner. And there was like a big, huge showdown, I think, between, it was like Batgirl jumps in to try to help Bruce because Deathstroke is so fast that he can anticipate Bruce's movements. And there was this huge fight in Gotham City where Batman is completely afraid because he realizes he's met someone who can take him. And then that leads to this big climactic battle through the streets of Gotham City at the end. But it was like a real psychological thriller where Deathstroke was kind of he was like a horror movie villain, or like a shark, kind of like Jaws.
Wow. Let me just ask you as one final follow-up on that piece. Do you think that HBO Max, which seems to be, and streaming in general, which seems to be changing the game in a lot of ways right now, do you think some of those doorways that seem closed could get windows opened up now in this kind of shifting paradigm?
I hold on to the hope that there could be a Deathstroke standalone. That was, when Batman fell apart, the studio was very much enthralled by all of the research that I was doing. I was starting to build the character out and pitch them ideas and build a backstory and kind of build, because I think a lot of times the comic book stories of Deathstroke are they're very far-fetched. They're very superhero-ish, where Deathstroke's holding a submarine over his head and throwing it, and I wanted Deathstroke to be human and grounded, and so I started with, he was a part of the American military. Okay, well, what part? What branch? What would he have done? Where would he have been? What did his wife do? And then of course, like the League of Shadows influence, and why does he carry a sword, and how do you learn how to use a sword if you're, most military guys don't mess around with katanas. It's just not what they do. So that part of the story needed to be built out. And so I was really grounding it, and they really, they loved it. So I worked on that for 6 months. At the end of that 6-month period, I wound up having a 2-hour-long Skype call with Gareth Evans, which, I've talked about before. And Gareth then entered into negotiations with the studio to make a stripped down version of Deathstroke that was almost like, imagine Deathstroke in The Raid or The Raid 2, a revenge film with Slade, the mask, the patch, how he lost the eye, how he lost his son, the whole deal, but with Gareth Evans, who is brilliant and one of my, really just a favorite director of mine, or somebody I dreamed of working with. So all of those tracks have been laid down. So, it's all there. And I think it would really be a shame if the fans never got to see that. I would go to my grave unhappy.
Was the solo film at all built out of Zack's Justice League, or was it just completely separate as its own standalone?
Completely different. And it wasn't, I don't think it was going to involve Batman or anything like that. It was how this character came to be.
All right, that's all the old business. Let's move on to some new business. It's 2021, and you're coming back at us with a new film called Shoplifters of the World. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I'm a huge Smiths fan. And always have been. And I read this fantastic script that was based on a true event, or something that happened in Denver, Colorado, in 1987. Word is that there was a Smiths fan who was so distraught over the breakup of the Smiths that he held up his local hair metal station at gunpoint and forced the DJ to play nothing but Smiths music all night long to impress this girl that he was in love with. And so I wound up reading a fantastic script by Stephen Kayak, who also directed the film. And we wound up pitching it to Morrissey's camp, Johnny Marr's camp, and we wound up getting 20 Smith songs. The film includes 20 Smith songs, most of which have never appeared in film and TV.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I just want to take a minute to say your shirt is fabulous. We've gotten a lot of people in the chat commenting on your shirt, and it's amazing. And it feels very indicative of this film that you're coming out with. So props. It's awesome. Fitting. My one question, because I come from a music background, is did this role reflect your musical taste? Obviously, you just answered that. And what else were you listening to and rocking out to in the 80s?
Well, in the 80s, I was pretty young in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So in 87, I was, lots of old Van Halen, like David Lee Roth. And, what else? I mean, it's after 1987, but Appetite for Destruction changed everything for me as a kid. It would be like Dr. Feelgood. And then once you get into the 90s, things really change musically for me and broaden. But yeah, if we're talking strictly 80s, then that's what I was listening to.
That is awesome. Gosh, we're so excited.
Ride the Lightning.
Wait, what was it?
Metallica's Ride the Lightning.
Metallica. They've also been on Twitch too, by the way. So that's pretty cool. Welcome to is this your first time on Twitch, by the way?
No, I've done some AMAs on Twitch. You know, my streetwear line, Death Saves. So I've gone on and explained all of the art pieces that I've had created for the line, and so I've done that, and then I've like watched plenty of gaming on Twitch. I have friends of mine who work for League of Legends, for example. So we'll watch whenever the new games come out. He'll come over and we'll throw it up on the movie screen and watch.
That's awesome.
All right. They're telling us we got to let you go. Joe, thank you so much for stopping by and talking with us. It meant so much in this moment. Thank you again.
Sure. I could talk about this stuff all day. So thanks for having me.
I could too. Don't tempt me. We're going to have to come have you back on and just do a whole show with us at some point.
And when we do, we will also talk some D&D because I want to talk D&D.
I could talk about that forever also.
So, yes, very much so.
Thank you very much.
Sure thing. Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
everybody.
Joe.
Joe Manganiello, everybody. All right. That was Joe Manganiello, Deathstroke himself. Awesome guy. You guys, I don't usually use this platform to lobby for anything, but you guys need to get out there and get this Deathstroke project happening.
Seriously, he's the perfect.
Yeah.
He is Deathstroke.
He was really humble about it, but if you go back and look, Gareth Evans, the director of The Raid, he left those meetings with Warner Bros. And said that Joe Manganiello is as far as he could tell, the actor who is most prepared for his character that he's ever seen.
Wow.
The most research, the most thought, development. So yeah, I mean, Joe's ready for this role. He just needs the opportunity. HBO, what are you, Max? Warner Brothers, what are you doing?
We have to see this.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about
it. That premise, as I mean, we're Batman fans. There's a lot of Batman fans on this podcast. So like some of those stories, like it had very like the big things of like Bane's whole storyline in there, like that original story where like Bane kind of goes after him and all of his family. But we've seen that like dissected in different ways. Having that with Ben Affleck's Batman and his Deathstroke sounded cool. Like that actually was like a project. I actually was like, you know what? That sounds really dope. Yeah. And as someone who was looking forward to that movie, because at one point Affleck was writing that, directing that, I was looking forward to that movie. Like that was the one I was most jazzed about.
Hey, that just takes me back to our first days together, Matt. That's what we were all psyched about in those impressionable days. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to break down some more of what's going on with the Snyderverse in the aftermath of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Then we got to talk about Marvel's release date changes for Black Widow and some other movies. And then we got to talk comics. And we have another interview with Justice League comic artist David Marquez that you guys also got to check out because that book is great and stunningly gorgeous. And we have questions for that. So a lot of Justice League to come still. Stay tuned. We're back. Okay, so we had Joe Manganiello on earlier, and he kind of let you guys know where he stands in terms of Zack Snyder's Justice League and the Snyderverse. But let's just get a quick update on what's happened here. So this movie came out, Zack Snyder's Justice League, over the weekend. Obviously, it was popular. I mean, if you judge just social media buzz and all of that, this movie was, off the charts all over the place. And surprisingly, a mainstream crossover. People who I didn't ever think would press play on this got on and press play, including Leslie Jones, which was hilarious with her life.
That was funny.
That was. At the same time, Warner Brothers has kind of said that they're not going to be continuing the Snyderverse, that this is the end. the exec, I forget her name right now. I don't need to really say her name. Warner Brothers CEO Ann Sarnoff has kind of come out and said, I appreciate the way that they love Zack's work, and we are thankful for his many contributions. We're just so happy, blah, that's all, just whatever. With that comes the completion of his trilogy. We're happy we've done this, but we're excited for the plans we have. And then she goes to plug all the stuff they're going to be putting out in the future, right? So Warner Brothers is still sticking. We were going into Justice League saying they can't stick to this cul-de-sac idea. They're going to have to budge on this, but they're not. It doesn't look like they are. Just real quick, going around, because it's already now morphed. Release the Ayer cut has come out. Restore the Snyderverse is the next hashtag. Things are moving forwards. Do you guys think this can move the goalpost again? Do you even want it to, or do you think we should be happy with what we got and kind of and just settle that? I'm going to say, well, I don't think Zack needs to be directly involved in a major film project for DC. We can still have his ideas and influences, spun off into other things. I now want to see this Amazon series he was going to make. I want to see a Deathstroke project with Joe Manganiello, whether it's the solo film or they do an event series and somehow rope Ben Affleck into just putting on the cowl one more time for like 6 episodes of an HBO Max series and doing that whole thing with him. I would like to see these things progress. And if we're doing a DC multiverse, I really don't get the game, like the battle plan that says, no, we should leave some of this stuff out, especially our currently most popular thing. But that's me. I'm a Snyder stan. You got to always take what I say with a grain of salt. Matt, what are you feeling? Because you bring a more level-headedness to this whole thing.
I feel like, look, when I heard they were not pursuing the and when I say so, Snyderverse is odd because it's such a mishmash because technically Aquaman and Wonder Woman are part of that, right? But they've spun off into their own things, and those movies are so different. So they originated there, right? So I don't even know technically what the Snyderverse is. In my mind, the Snyderverse is the Man of Steel, BVS, and then the Justice League Part 1 and Part 2, those in concept, and then whatever Snyder has talked about, kind of what he had plans for later. So that's how I compartmentalize the Snyderverse when I think about it. And that part, I'm okay. There are things in this one that I actually found interesting, and I do kind of find that nightmare scenario interesting and would like to maybe see that pursued. But as far as that just kind of thing, I'm okay. If it doesn't come back, but there are things in it I would like to explore, and I think in this, if you embrace this whole multiverse aspect, which is right in front of you, then why not? Just kind of have that going along with all the other things you have planned. It doesn't have to be an either or situation. What I will say is the spin-off things from that universe are way more interesting to me. So I know Snyder was talking about plans, what he had after, well, I don't know if you want to get into spoilers for what was supposed to be in Justice League 2 or not.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. So Batman's supposed to sacrifice himself and all that stuff happens. And then there's no Batman. And he's well, I was going to have Batgirl kind of fill that role for a while and then have the child of Clark and Lois be the next Batman, right? And all these things. Some of that's interesting. I don't necessarily love each and every part of that, but that stuff's interesting to me. But again, as a core thing, I'm not I'm okay. I'll be okay that certain things don't continue, but it's a bummer that it encompasses all of it because there's some really cool ideas that I actually would like to see. So,
yeah. Kofi?
No, go ahead, Janelle.
Okay, so I'm just going to say it right now, Kofi. I'm with you. I'm standing this all the way. It is a huge, huge, huge loss if they do not decide to go into a little bit of the Snyderverse stuff. I think that it is time for them to stop trying to be Marvel, be its own thing, embrace what you started this. You started this. You went with this dark kind of not Marvel-esque, not for everyone vibe in the beginning. Stick to it. Just embrace what you've done and make the fans, the diehard fans, happy, and let this let this verse, the Snyderverse, exist. There are so many fans of this and so many people that want it at this point there can be a multiverse. There can still be a Robert Pattinson Batman universe, but there can also be the Snyder stuff. And I think that this was a beautiful example of making comics for the comic book movies for adults. They don't all have to be for children to go watch with their parents. Like, I am a 35-year-old woman who will go by myself to a theater and love this. Like, I like this dark content. I think it's such a shame that they're even saying this. I don't know why they came out so quickly to just kind of like break their fan base spirit. I think that was really in poor taste. Like, and I'm frustrated. I'm actually frustrated with Warner Brothers that they did this. The least you could have done is held your tongue, let us enjoy this moment and be happy about this and have a little bit of hope. Like, we're excited about DC for the first time in a long time. Like, we needed this. As like a big Marvel fan myself, in the movie, in the films, and now TV shows, I've not been excited for anything DC. I've been like, yeah, it's cool, but I'm not pumped. I'm not like just raring to get back into the theaters for DC content. If the Snyderverse was restored, I would be on the same level as my Marvel content. I would be just as excited. And so I think this was a big no-no for them to do this, and they need to give us Deathstroke. And I'm pumped.
Go off, girl.
I'm about it.
Yeah, I'm about it too. I mean, I'm going to address some things said in the comments, like, yeah, I want to see a Zatanna movie. I want to see that Justice League Dark build up eventually. I don't want to see it more right now than I want to see that Nightmare Justice League get their own like little spinoff or something. Because that Nightmare League, as I call it, was fantastic, and it's crazy, and nobody ever saw something like that coming, and I would love to see more of that. I would love to see the Deathstroke angle kind of played out, and like with Ben Affleck's Batman. Like, those are the things I want to see immediately. And I'm like you, Janelle. I love Marvel stuff, but there should be a thing for adult and even cinephiles to kind of, go over, and Zack Snyder provides that. And I just don't understand. It feels like we went through 2020 and Warner Brothers didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
I thought they were groundbreaking for doing this, because they're figuring out like, hey, movies are changing. Streaming's changing it. We can put out 4-hour epics. We can do this like we talked about on the last podcast. But, here we are. But it's all good. I don't think you need to limit yourself. I don't know why they're doing this. Somebody else in the comments kind of pointed out that you shouldn't force a company to change its plans. But I think one thing I want to just say before we move on is I've been doing this for about 12 years, and I could tell you from the time that I was doing this back when Marvel was just starting phase 1, Kevin Feige learned a crazy big lesson, which is that you can make plans, but you also got to be flexible, and you got to be ready to change them. You can't stick to them too hard. Phase 1 had problems going into phase 2 because the plans were so rock solid. Directors didn't have a lot of freedom. There were a lot of people they hired who wanted to kind of add their own flavor or twist to this. And they were like, no, we got to stick to the plan. And it's like, ever since then, Feige will tell you about this. He learned he's got to collaborate more. He's got to hear new ideas. You got to be willing to let go, change ideas, see what the fans respond to. Big one. And kind of, you think Black Panther would have been the first character out of that portal in Endgame if he hadn't been making $1 billion+ like right before that? Like, things change, and you got to kind of change with them. I feel like Warner Brothers is still in that early phase of just saying, okay, we made this plan, we released Snyder Cut. Now all our other plans are going to are going to happen. And we're just going to keep with those. But you got to be flexible. Like, people came out, Snyder Cut, they probably had a bigger reaction than you thought. You need to absorb that, take some time, have some meetings, and, go with it. All right, I could do this all day, but let's talk about some other stuff, because I know I'll exhaust Matt.
Do this all day.
I could do this all day.
I could do this all day.
Talking about doing it all day and that Marvel reference. So we just got an update that Disney has shifted a lot of movie dates, and 2 are big Marvel movies that are changing dates. The first is, of course, Black Widow, which has changed dates from May to early July. And after all the debate of whether Black Widow would hit theaters or be released on Disney Plus, Disney and Marvel kind of made the I don't want to make a decision and is going to release them in both. So July, Black Widow will be in theaters. It will also be released the same day, July 9th, on Disney Plus Premier Access, which means you got to pay $30 if you have Disney Plus to see it at home. Right. Shang-Chi was supposed to come out in July. It's now been moved back to September. So Black Widow, just kind of touching on this, I feel like this is in some ways the worst of all worlds. Like, you pushed it back again. I'm really kind of, I don't know where things stand, but I feel like things could be far enough along that you could have kept either that May date or a later date in May and still done pretty well. Or you could just release on Disney Plus Premier Access in May and give it to us then and say, okay, we don't have confidence in theaters. We'll do a theatrical release later. This is just kind of like a scat. It's like putting your chips all over the roulette table and hoping for the best. And just, I don't even understand how this price structure is gonna work. But I feel like by July, most of us are going to be ready to get back in the theater for something like a Marvel movie, right? Absolutely.
I mean, I even think, May, I think now we're ready. I'll wear a mask, like whatever it takes to, make sure that we get to see our film in the theater. I'm one of those people, I feel like Disney is kind of, maybe excited about this. I'm one of the people that's going to be like, I'm going to go watch it in the theater and I'm also going to watch it at home. So I wonder if they're kind of counting on that, or I will be doing both.
You would pay theater prices, then go home and pay another $30?
I would, yeah. Because I've done nothing for a year.
You're a better consumer than me. I mean, if I go to watch it and pay theater prices and then I come home and I'm paying $30, I better have that movie for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Not like the rental window before you see it. That's absurd.
Truthfully, if I'm being truthful here, I barely want to see this now.
No,
it's so like what I said when we talked about Wonder Woman 1984 and was like, hey, that was right at the fringe for me of like almost like my anticipation was almost going away because it just had been delayed, and you keep getting amped up and then like, oh no, we're pushing. That eventually has that erosion of your enthusiasm is real. And for Black Widow, it has been done so many times. And I've said it on here, I don't know how many times. Like, I don't know why they waited so damn long. It was always going to be this. I don't know what planet they were on where they thought, oh, hey, we're going to be able to like, the floodgates are going to open. And like, there's just like still the two big markets, you know what I mean, are still just slowly coming. Like, it was never going to be that. And they kept like just, and with all their movies, aside from like one or two, they did this. And finally it was like, okay, we need to get this out and we need to start the train so we can get all the other movies out. And so we need to go ahead and do this. I think the $30 is like, good Lord. Like I already pay, like technically I already pay for Disney Plus. So I'm already paying something. So the fact that you're now wanting me to pay another 30, like 20 is kind of my ballpark of like, okay, that's feasible. That's 2 tickets, about whatever. 30 is a bit much, but even that is okay. But this should have been done like 6 months ago. Right. Why did you wait? Just do it then. There were still people going into some theaters then, and you would have still had some bank coming from that. But here it's just like, it's like what Kofi said. It's kind of like, like a fart in the wind. It's like, well, why did you wait so long? It's just such a dud. So anyway, I'm really not like, I'm not going to a theater to see Black Widow really because I just don't care anymore. And it's sad because I was interested in this movie and I've been interested in this movie for a long time, but I could just not care less. Like, I'm ready to just like get the movie out, watch it, move on. Let's just move on.
Oh, we've got a muted
Kofi.
I muted myself. I want to respond to what Sir Nasty, our commenter, Sir Nasty just said. He has kids. He said he'd happily pay $30 for the Disney Plus experience at home as opposed to paying like $100 to go to a theater. I have kids. I get that too. What I think we're saying is if you're going to do that, like we would have wanted Black Widow before now, like before July. Like if we're doing that, like, yeah, I'll pay you the $30.
Yes.
But I could have used this last year. Earlier this year, right now, like anytime before July, making me wait till like I'm anticipating this, like, hey kids, by July we're gonna sit down and get Black Widow for $30 at home. Like by then I'm gonna be like, get your asses out of the house, go somewhere. Like, don't sit here with me. Like, I don't want to be sitting here with you. Like, it's just late in the game for that. I feel like it's missing the prime window for when people in mass would have paid that $30. And I get it. You want that theater profits. But like I said in our comic book chat yesterday, unless Black Widow reveals that all of Russia is Skrulls who are working for Mephisto, there's nothing in this movie that I want to see so bad
Oh my God.
anymore.
It's true. But that's it. That's the key word, anymore. It's not that I was looking forward to this. And I know you were too. Like, we were jazzed about Black Widow, but like, it's just been so long. And agreed, unless there is just some monumental shift in the MCU because of this, I'm going to watch and go like, oh, okay, that was good.
Like, to be honest, like, I'm sure ScarJo is kicking herself for even signing up for this, because she could have been done with this all.
Yeah.
And then she got roped into this thinking, oh, I'm going to finally get my due in like my solo film. And it's just been a debacle. But right now, I mean, let's just all be honest. This thing is set in the past. Everything is moving on. We're now getting psyched about like what's going on in Falcon and Winter Soldier and all this stuff. The only reason that we need to see this film is to figure out how how Florence Pugh's Yelena becomes a new Black Widow. That's about it. That's about all we need from this, right? Going forward, and to learn there's possibly some other super soldier program, serum, whatever out there. That's about all the real big reveals I can think of. We already know we're going to see Black Widow in Hawkeye, so we already have that anticipation coming up. And I don't got to pay anything for that, the new Black Widow. And we're already
we get Kate Bishop.
Yeah, and we're getting the new kind of status quo of the espionage world from Falcon and Winter Soldier. So, like, yeah, I mean, it kind of missed the window on relevancy here. And yeah, I feel bad for everybody involved with that film, because I'm sure it's going to be good and I'm sure it's going to kick butt, but it's just going to feel like a thing I wish I was watching last year.
Yeah, that's literally what the chat is saying. JW Jordan says Disney would have made so much more money if they would have done this at the same time Tenet came out, so they could have had it both ways as well. And people would have paid $30 back last November. We were all so hungry for it. So yeah.
Yeah, those are dark times. I definitely would have.
And by the way, I saw the comment about like, careful about these opinions. Look, I was one of the people, and I think I did it on this show. I can't remember when, but I'm one of the people that was like, Hawkeye should have died instead of Black Widow. I was robbed.
No, they can't cancel you. You're way too consistent to be canceled.
And so, no, Hawkeye should be gone. But at the same time, it's not a matter about the quality of the movie. It's about just the time frame, delays, and it felt like anyway Disney's reluctance to go this route with a major release. So anyway,
all right, moving on from that, Matt, tell us what do we got going on in comics this week?
Let's talk Alien.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna admit,
pause. We got to do a whole shift. Okay. Going to Marvel's Alien. All right, here we go.
We're going to go Alien. So of course it was big news relatively recently, actually. These are coming out pretty quick, that Marvel got the license to Aliens and Predator. So there is also a Predator series coming later on, and hopefully at some point the inevitable crossover. But for now, this is the first one of those, and this is just focusing on the Aliens. Now, I will self-admit, I am not the biggest, like, I don't know timelines and continuity for Aliens. That's not something
it's pretty simple for what they're referencing. You don't have to, I mean, the whole messy, bigger franchise, you don't really got to connect to. All you got to know is Prometheus and Alien Covenant took place years before the first Alien. The Alien takes place a couple years before Aliens, because they go back and settle on that colony where they first got the alien, like idiots. And then a whole bunch of people die in the second film. And then this picks up like some odd 20 years after Aliens.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't know if I was missing certain things when I was reading, because that's just not my bag. But I was interested to see what they do, because I always look at it as like, maybe they can hook me. Maybe this will be the thing that kind of gets me into this universe. For me, I enjoyed this. It wasn't my favorite, issue of a comic, but like I enjoyed it. I thought the strongest parts were actually the stuff that had nothing to do with aliens. It was kind of the father-son, discord that was happening. There were some interesting ideas. Of course, obviously, we are going to get into spoilers here, so spoiler warning. I haven't really touched on anything big here, but going forward, we might hit some. So FYI. So I thought that was interesting. This was like a weird. Salvador LaRocca did this book, and I typically am a big fan of his work, but this was kind of, I don't know. I didn't love this as much as I love some of his other stuff. I was kind of meh. That was kind of meh on this, but what do you think?
it reminded me of like Wildstorm LaRocca. When he gets with certain inkers, there's just like this weird, almost like CGI quality to like his humans. It's kind of that's neither here nor there. I think this mirrors what we'll be talking about next week with Godzilla versus Kong in a weird way, because the human story I was just kind of like, but you know, the intrigue with the aliens and the actual monsters kept me hooked. The main character, I forget his name, like Alejandro, I think it is. Anyway, the security chief from the thing, whatever's going on with him and the backstory of his mission and what this darkness is creeping his head is interesting. The stuff with him and his son is not so interesting. The stuff with the son in the rebel group is interesting, and how the book ends with them kind of screwing themselves in this lab facility and releasing the aliens is very interesting. Now I want to see where this goes. I think this will be messed up in the horror sci-fi sense of this guy, because it's already alluded that he lost one son possibly to the xenomorphs, and now his other son looks like it's in pretty dire situations. So either it's a cliffhanger that makes you think he's going to get got by a face grabber. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a lot of the father trying to save the son. And that will be an interesting kind of hook. But in terms of Marvel taking Alien and making the creep and the dread and the kind of horror of it, I'm kind of here for that. I like it. And I liked the promise of that, even if this first issue was slow. I mean, these kinds of movies and alien movies are always slow because you got to get into the human grounding and all that stuff. Yeah. But yeah, now that we're in space, I hope we don't spend any more time on Earth. Earth is like the last place unless there's going to be invaded by aliens. I don't want to see Earth. Like, get the father off of Earth, back up into the space colony. He's sick. He's dying. He's got to face the xenomorphs again, possibly save his son. That's a story I want to see.
Yeah, I agree. I will say that while the humans in this book were kind of all had that weird quality, the actual xenomorphs looked cool. I will say that. There's a big splash page that is actually pretty dope. Janelle, what'd you think?
You guys summed this up really, really well. I also don't have a ton of background as far as context with Alien, but I've seen every movie. I just have only seen them one time. So I don't have a ton of knowledge, but I do love sci-fi a lot. So just by nature, I was really into this. Like from the very first page, I was hooked. I was ready to go and really excited about where it was going to take me. And I thought they did a really good job of humanizing, the story with the father and son aspect, and then also just being terrifying with the aliens, with the flashbacks, and then also with the cliffhanger that we were left on. So for me, like, this is definitely something I'm going to continue to read. I can't wait to see where this goes. I think they did a pretty great job. Obviously, like, it's not my Doctor Strange. I have to mention him always, but I really enjoyed it. I got it. I wasn't confused. And it was easy to follow, and I'm pumped to see where it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of optimism in this. This is good.
I really liked this one. I was pumped when you sent it. I was like, "What? Alien? No way!"
It was very much out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I was really excited.
We got a commenter, Jazz Crab. Jazz Crab. Nobody's trying to replace the Dark Horse universe. Nothing can replace the Dark Horse universe. Like, if you're a '90s kid like me, Dark Horse universe is always going to be the comic universe where they had Dark Horse had the license to a bunch of genre properties like Alien, Terminator, RoboCop, and they did awesome classic stories in the Dark Horse line for all of those books and for all those properties. And yeah, man, nothing's going to beat Dark Horse. Dark Horse could do stuff that just like a publisher like Marvel's never going to go.
Dude, Dark Horse got me onto the Star Wars books. I loved those things. Like, I loved so many of those stories, and then they all got wiped because they don't exist anymore in the expanded, whatever Star Wars calls its expanded universe or whatever. They don't exist anymore. That bummed me out. But Dark Horse did some great.
Yeah, we're not trying to compete. We're just happy to have Alien in a comic. We can't get back Dark Horse.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, what was our other book?
All right, the one I really want to talk about is Batman White Knight presents Harley Quinn #6. We've talked about this book before. I am an unabashed fan. I will admit, this was the conclusion to this current spinoff series. I have no idea if we're going to get more. Please, to Lord, hope so. So for me, this issue is one of those things where it like packs all the things I love about the series overall. It's those heartfelt moments with Harley and some of the GTO and some amazing stuff with Batman, even though he's not on screen. He appears in like 2 pages, but his effect is felt throughout the book, and there's just a great dynamic there. We get a flashback to Joker and kind of what spurred Harley leaving him. And again, that stuff was additive. It didn't just feel like, oh, we just want an excuse to shoehorn Joker in here. It felt like it contributed to part of the story. The villain was focused on as the villain. Yes, there's stuff about the past and this whole son mother thing, but like she was the villain. We didn't have to kind of dive into it. The focus was on Harley and that suit and how she comes about to be like really a part of the GTL. There's just so much in this issue that I adored. It's gorgeous too, by the way. And also, if you're a Batman 1989 fan, well, number one, you probably love the White Knight universe because he always uses that Batmobile. And like every single, that Batmobile is used throughout the entire series. But yeah, so I just adored this. I had all the feels at the end, and I was stoked. I want more of this. This is my favorite Harley Quinn. So
yeah, that new suit though,
man.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Harley Quinn getting her own Batman inspired suit with the black and the white and the yellow. Yeah, that was in the hammer that changes size.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Like, you're gonna do that little mallet. She's like, hold up.
It's so good.
It was really good. Sean Murphy has really, done something with this kind of White Knight verse or whatever you call it. It is one of the it has become its like own full-fledged Batman universe, and rightly so. There are just great stories, and he walks a great line, I think, between what we're talking about, Justice League and Snyder Cut and all this stuff, of making something that's still very comic booky but still more of an adult level. Like that final splash page said it all. It's like, male superheroes like end and like they're just in their cave brooding, like looking at stuff. And it's like Harley Quinn's doing that, taking care of 2 pets, 2 kids at the same time, and running a career. Like, and it's like, and she's like, I got this. And like, that's her big victory. This was a great series. And we've seen like between Future State, them trying to evolve the character, and Joker War and give Punchline a new role, like, and do all that. Like, this has been quietly the best version of Harley Quinn in the last year that DC has put out, besides the animated one. I love that too. But
that's a great.
No, I just beautifully said. I love Harley so much. I absolutely adore her in this. And personally, the backstory with Joker was very powerful for me. I actually liked that more than the main storyline with the director and everything. I cannot imagine them not going forward with the director and giving us more content, because they even referenced like, this isn't over, he's gonna be out there doing more. This wasn't a one-man job. So I could definitely see this continuing on. I hope it does. If anybody is kind of new to comic books, like I'm your buddy, I'm your pal, like we're new to reading comics in general. This is a very easy read, even if you have just limited knowledge in the comic book history of Joker, Harley, and Harley's even relationship with Batman. It's a really great series to read. I actually read 5 and 6 last night because I had fallen behind, and reading them stacked like one after the other, it's such a good read. And yeah, I highly recommend it. Really great book. Love the hyenas. Oh my gosh. I want to hug them. I just got a new puppy. And when she gets a new puppy, I literally I kind of like got teary eyed. I'm like, oh my God, it's my puppy. I was just so excited. And it's, even the hyena is heroic in it, which is really exciting. So definitely think that this is a must read. I really do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so that is comics. Of course, this universe has 2 other main series and I think like 2 one-shots, I believe. One I'm focusing on Mr. Freeze, and the other 2 kind of tell the story of like Jack Napier and his battle, like how we got here, how the universe kind of got to this point. And they're also very good. But this has been by far my favorite of all of them. So yeah, fingers crossed. Hope to see more. Katana Collins and Sean Murphy, Mateo Scalera have done amazing work here. So hope to see more. So that's comics.
Oh,
but
is
that's
it?
Not comics. Because we have an interview. We talked, of course, about Justice League number 59 last week. And we actually, as I have said, I am a fan of David Marquez's work. And I think the art is one of the strongest parts of the issue. So of course we got to talk to him for a little bit all about the issue. Of course, spoilers coming for the issue and a little bit of teases of like what's to come in the series and working with Brian Michael Bendis. So we definitely have that queued up. So
before you throw, there's one more question. Patrick Dooley asked us after the Snyder Cut, who's better, Marvel or DC? Nice try. You're not going to get us. We are not going to get We're not going down that rabbit hole today. Instead, Matt, we want to see you talk with Mr. David Marquez of Justice League.
Aguilar here from Comicbook.com, and today I have the esteemed pleasure of talking to David Marquez of DC Comics. How are you?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Exhausted like everyone else, I'm sure, but doing all right.
Yeah, for real. My child just figured out how to walk over the last week. So
congratulations, awesome.
It is great, but as they say, right, it's like once they level up, so to speak, they then can get into all kinds of other things. So I'm tired, so I understand. But so I'm excited to talk about Justice League. Justice League number 59 kicks off a whole new arc and series with you and Brian Michael Bendis. So just to get people kind of up to speed, if they haven't been keeping up with the core series or coming out of Future State, what is just a quick primer on this Justice League team and kind of what the mission statement is, where they find themselves?
Yeah, sure thing, man. So we are trying our best to make this any reader friendly book. Oftentimes, because you can phrase it as new reader friendly, we also want people who are, thoroughly invested in the history of DC Comics to feel at home in it as well. So it's a big ask, but so for us, we're opening with a kind of a mix of the traditional Justice League lineup and a few new faces. So from the images people have seen online, the lineup as a whole is Superman, Batman, no Wonder Woman. That's because of where things end up kind of after the end of Future State, which if people who've been reading the Wonder Woman books, they'll have a good sense of kind of where she fits into the current DCU. You have Aquaman and Hawkgirl, and those four are kind of like the main traditional carryovers for the team. We have Flash in a Barry as a guest starring role, although he ends up showing up in every issue I've drawn so far. So he's, Brian made the joke that if he was on a TV show, the agent would be pushing him to be brought in as a regular because, he's basically throughout our entire story thus far. And then the three major additions that we're bringing in to the story, and I don't know how much I should call them like part of the team as opposed to they are part of the story that is happening in Justice League, is Black Adam, Naomi, and Queen Hippolyta. So our goal really with this specific lineup is trying to give the Justice League or bring the Justice League face to face with the question of when we are trying to pursue justice for whom, right? And it's very easy for the Justice League, I think, for all of us who are traditionally reading the Justice League, to think of it as just kind of like a very comfortable thing representing our lived experience as Americans, right? And we're wanting to really kind of broaden the horizons of what the Justice League is supposed to represent. Outside of the traditional bounds of how we've seen them. So Black Adam, being someone who has so often been portrayed as a villain, brings a different perspective to needs of people around the world, Kahndaq being a really good example of that, because in addition to being traditional nemesis of Shazam, obviously he is also the ruler of Kahndaq, and that country is facing a brand new threat, and that plays a really huge role launching off the story. Naomi brings a very different perspective as being a young character, whereas traditionally the Justice League it's the pantheon of the DCU. These are the established heavy hitters, and she brings in a completely different perspective. And when you have her contrasting with Black Adam, that conflict or that juxtaposition is really kind of what drives the core of our story forward. And then there's a glaring absence of Diana, of Wonder Woman on the team, and Hippolyta has a lot of questions about that. and wants answers. So she comes in, and saying too much would bring in spoilers, so I won't go too much into it. But we're trying to bring in differing perspectives to the Justice League beyond what readers have traditionally seen. Long answer, but
no, that's perfect, because that actually sets up the next question, because it is such a unique mix of like heavy hitters, like icons, and then also some fan favorite characters like Ollie and Dinah, and one of my personal favorites, Hawk Girl. I love that character.
Oh, of course, I completely left out Green Arrow and Black Canary. People are gonna skewer me online. Yes,
no, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people. But like those, kind of fan favorites, and also now we have, of course, Black Adam, Naomi, and Hippolyta. And so, you talked a little bit already about Black Adam and Naomi's kind of interaction. Was there another dynamic that kind of surprised you, just kind of as you were working on the series? And is there, one of those that you just really, by the end of it, just ended up loving more than you planned to?
I mean, the easy one to say is Black Adam as a whole has been really surprising for me. He's a character that I haven't spent a ton of time with before. I've read stories with him in it here and there, but I haven't really done a deep dive until I started kind of prepping for drawing this book, and I went back and read a bunch of Black Adam stuff and really got into the character, especially like the stuff Jeff Johns and stuff has done over the last 10 years with him. One of the cool things about a team book is the contrast you get when you when you force two people into a room and make them interact. A team book isn't always about having all of your players on the field at the same time talking to each other. You also have opportunities to take them apart and have them interact in new and unique ways. And throughout, the opening arc, this happens a bunch of different times with different pairings or larger subgroups kind of forced by whatever's happening in the story to solve a problem on their own, or face, history they have, or differences of opinion that they have. And Black Adam has a number of these where you kind of really get to see the depth of his character. One of the cool things about a character like Black Adam is, and this is something that I've been saying in a few different interviews, like the best villains are the ones that don't see themselves as villains and who we as the audience or as the reader actually empathize with. Like Killmonger in Black Panther is a great example of this. It's a character where you get where they're coming from. You don't necessarily agree with their maybe you get them at the very beginning and you understand why they're so angry. You lose them kind of further down the line. Yeah. With Black Adam, he is a very, complex character, and getting to see his perspective on the way the Justice League operates really casts an interesting light on the decisions that these really powerful characters make. And sometimes that they aren't taking all the factors, into consideration. But beyond that, beyond just Black Adam and the way he's interacting with everybody, I think that Superman is a character that there are a billion different takes on how to write Superman. Mm-hmm. Superman to me is just kind of like, he's the person that everyone can or should feel comfortable and safe with. And generally speaking, if Superman is making a moral argument, he's probably right. And that's kind of put into an interesting kind of twist in the beginning of our story, because ultimately he's the one that brings Black Adam into the Justice League, or at least he brings Black Adam to the Justice League as an ally in the fight they're having. And this is one of the first times that the rest of the team are like, what are you thinking? This is Black Adam. How could this possibly be the right decision? But it's you. Superman is the one who's telling us to do this, or that this is the right thing to do. He's usually right about these kinds of things. So he's put in a position where he's kind of stepping out on a limb and making decisions that is a decision maybe he wouldn't have made 6 months or a year or 2 years before, but something happens and he changes his perspective. And he's, like in many cases, he's maybe a step or two ahead of where the other characters are. And that then sets up a new interesting kind of like, secondary and tertiary degree of conflicts within the dynamic of the Justice League. So again, even talking about Superman, it boils back down to Black Adam. So he's really kind of the initial touchstone that starts changing the way the Fantastic Four, I was going to say, I don't know why, the Justice League and how they operate. And it doesn't stop there. I mean, in every issue, there's a new interesting dynamic and contrast between characters that is a lot of fun to play with. So, again, long answer, but
no, it's great because one of the things I actually really and I've said this about your Superman, right? There's a like this just casual badassery to the character, and likewise with Black Adam, it's very easy, and there's so many takes on the character, not as many as Superman, but there's a lot of takes on the character, and a lot of times they kind of go into like caricature territory. He's either overtly evil or he's this grimacing curmudgeonly character all the time. There's very rare that you're going to find something in the middle. It's one extreme or the other, and here he's not, and in fact he's very you see a wide range of emotions, as emotional as he gets, as personal as he gets, but you see a wide amount of those. And there's even a great sequence where he's like talking to someone who lives in his country. Like there's all these, you see a lot of interesting facets. And when you're creating him, is there something you're avoiding? Do you kind of go out of your way to avoid some of those tropey things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always challenging myself on the art side to bring across subtlety in the way my characters act. And I'm not going to say I always nail it, but it's rare. I think it's more interesting when a character is having more than one emotional reaction to something, right? Mm-hmm. And trying to bring that across the art is very difficult. So like even with someone like Black Adam, to make it more concrete, he's always arrogant, but it's arrogant on top of other stuff. It's arrogant, but he's uncertain. It's arrogant, but he's disgusted. He's arrogant, but he's offended. He's arrogant, but maybe he realizes he was wrong, right? And those kinds of really subtle but important contradictions or pairings. Again, think about the way characters kind of pair up, the way the emotions also pair up is it provides depth and nuance, hopefully, to a story. The same line of dialogue with different facial expressions can mean completely different things. And so trying to bring that richness to the story and to the characters, and to a character like Black Adam specifically, it's challenging, but that's where I as an artist have a lot of fun. I've joked in the past that like when I'm drawing, I make the craziest faces because I'm almost like trying to act out what I want my characters to be doing on the page as I'm drawing it. I don't know what my face would look like when I'm drawing Black Adam, but I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, you need to have like a camera set up, taking like selfies like every couple minutes just to see, just for your own, like a flip book at the end of it. So you can that. It needs to be a thing. You have worked with, of course, Batman, Superman on that series, and you've already worked with those two characters a lot, just kind of bouncing off each other. And now kind of coming into Justice League, is there something that you've kind of learned about that dynamic, or something that you've tweaked and changed along the way as far as like how you approach them as characters, and how they're even just from their dialogue choices or just the way they maneuver around each other? Has there something that you've kind of taken from that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I can nail it down to like one specific thing for each character, but I was very fortunate that I got to cut my teeth in the DCU on a book like Batman Superman, getting to play the two biggest toys in the toy box, and start to learn my way around them. And I feel like Superman came fairly naturally to me. I feel like Batman is a character that I'm always tweaking and changing the way that I draw him, just in terms of like, there are a number of very kind of definitive silhouettes that Batman has, or the way you draw his ears and things like that. And in terms of starting with just that concrete of how do you draw the character, my Superman I feel like hasn't changed too much. My Batman is kind of always kind of changing here or there. But the bigger lesson that I took away from it is Superman and Batman have a very obvious contrast in terms of posture, in terms of, Superman is smiling and charming and friendly and kind, And Batman is always suspicious and skeptical and doubting, and is always trying to figure out the angles, you know? Similarly, like in the Justice League, I take, you know, what I learned from trying to learn how to draw that contrast initially in Batman Superman to now you do it to 9 characters, and try to have 9 characters all not only, I mean, obviously they look different because their designs are different, but you know, they smile, they smirk, they grimace, they, you know, they sit, they stand, they crouch differently than the other characters do, and trying to make sure they're even if they're just silhouetted out and you couldn't see the details of their costumes, I would hope that a reader would be able to kind of pick out from the way they're carrying themselves, that, you know, oh, that's Aquaman, that's Green Arrow, that's Black Canary, you know. I'm not sure that I've seen like a huge evolution in terms of the way that I'm presenting Batman and Superman compared to how I drew them initially, but I'm always trying to make sure they're contrasting with each other, because again, drama comes from conflict. Interesting stories come from conflict and contrast. And on a team book especially, you have to have it, or else you just have, you know, 7 or 9 characters that are all just ciphers for each other. That's not interesting. That's boring, you know. Not saying I always nail it, but I'm always trying to bring that across.
No, absolutely. And, you know, 9 people is already a lot. It's a lot of people. However, I have to ask, just with so many different DC characters out there, and you know, I guess was there a character that was discussed between you and Brian early on as like being part of maybe this team, and then just kind of cut out just because it didn't really fit?
Yeah, I mean, we went through a bunch of, I mean, a little bit roundabout way of getting to the answer. So when we first started talking about this, and we've been bouncing the idea of doing this book together for a while, Black Adam was always going to be on the team from the beginning, and that was just because we knew that from DC, you know, higher ups on down, this is a character that a lot of people were really invested in seeing have a bigger role in the DCU. Not the least of which because, you know, The Rock has been playing him in a movie pretty
Thanks
soon.
a lot, Rock. Yeah.
And so they didn't want to feel forced or artificial, but it's kind of like, you know, if you can make this guy work, that'd be really cool. And so we all thought about it. And my initial reaction was like, really, Black Adam? I mean, like, is that really the kind of character you want? And so I took some convincing on it. As it is now, as I've already said, like I'm very excited to have him now on the team, and he's one of my favorite characters to draw. In those initial conversations of, well, who would we build what would the team be? What would be the center of it? Who could we, you know, build this around? Originally, we weren't even sure if we would have like Superman or Batman on it. We had no idea what the lineup was going to be, and so we went through lots of different permutations of what the team could look like. And ultimately, we settled on, you know, having a core of the traditional characters, with other characters kind of either brought in to be permanent members or kind of rotating in as the story, you know, leads or dictates. Now, some people who didn't make the cut, I really wanted Grifter on the team. I know it's really out of left field. I'm an old school Wildstorm like fanatic, and pretty much everyone was kind of like, I don't think he'd really fit in this story. And you know, I fought for it, but ultimately they were right. And this is a really good example of, and first of all, like, I don't think many people love Grifter as much as I do. This is purely like a selfish ask, you know? Having the right characters for the right story is really important. And so, you know, we talked about other characters. We wondered whether, you know, Zatanna should be on the team, but ultimately it's like, well, really, what Ram is doing in Justice League Dark, she fits in much better there. Yeah. And this isn't to say that characters can only be in one place at one time. One thing that a lot of us on the creative side will talk to each other about is you know, making sure that we don't feel as if we're keeping the toys away from other people when there's a good opportunity for multiple people to use the same character, but also we don't want to be messing up what another, you know, creative team is doing if what we're doing conflicts with what they're doing. So there's a balancing act there. there is no Green Lantern on the team currently, and that's because we would be messing up stuff that's going on elsewhere if we brought one of the Green Lantern characters in. Not to say that there wouldn't be any kind of Green Lantern stuff at some point down the storyline, but as people will read the books, they'll start to see where opportunities either are or aren't. Why a Green Lantern is or isn't on the team. That'll make sense as people start reading the books as they're coming out this year. Anybody else? Again, we had a list of probably 20 or 30 characters that we went through in terms of, here are a bunch of people who are traditional members of the Justice League. Here are characters that haven't been used a lot recently. Here are characters that, Brian loves or I love. And I think we ended up with a really nice kind of rounded out representation of the different corners of the DCU. And as the stories move forward past this first arc, the team will be going pretty far afield from their traditional haunts, and there'll be more opportunities to bring in characters from different parts of the DCU, both to be a part of the team or just to be allies. And all of this, though, kind of goes back to the idea of, like I was saying kind of towards the beginning of our chat, that ultimately the idea we're driving home is justice for who, and giving the team opportunities to always question whether or not is the solution that they have, or is that the way they're fighting for, against whatever the adversary is, are we actually fighting for the right thing and for the right people, and making sure that everybody is coming out ahead as best as possible.
Yeah, and represented.
Absolutely,
in that thing. That's one of the things that comes across really well, and also just in Ollie and Dinah's conversation about like Clark's coming out to the world and telling everybody who he is and all that stuff. There's some really that was one of the things I actually really enjoyed about the issue is playing with that, and that's why I'm interested to see how that topic gets spun moving forward. As far as Grifter, look, we all have those characters, right? Everyone makes fun of me, right? It's like Darkhawk for Marvel. Dude, and Darkhawk's awesome. Darkhawk, oh my god, there's like two of us at Comic Book.
I've been on panels and they've asked, like, if you could draw anybody, who would you draw? And I would say Darkhawk, and everyone would laugh. And I'm not joking.
Dude, Darkhawk's awesome.
Chris Powell, man, my boy. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so happy. Yeah, so
there's two of us.
Yes, there's a Marvel Legend of Darkhawk somewhere back here. For DC, it's always like, Zatanna's one, Detective Chimp. I would stick Detective Chimp in everything if I could.
Sir, but are going to love Rom's book.
I was gonna say I agree, because like Justice League Dark has been even the future state stuff and everything's been excellent. So, I'm excited for that. And I'm also excited that it's in, for those who don't know, who are watching this, you can actually see Justice League Dark in Justice League, and they share a story. So that's great. Like, that's cool that they're, back to back in the same issue, which is awesome.
Totally.
But I understand the Grifter thing. I will shoehorn this in. Somewhere Jim is rolling his eyes because I talked about Hawk Girl already. One of the things we talked about a little bit was the villains. And of course, while justice and things, there's kind of a greater theme. There is a villain, and there is someone that will actually pose a threat to the team. And that's always difficult, but we have one here at Brutus. What do you think will surprise fans most about this character? And is he the central villain of the series? Are there other ones to come? Like, what I guess is the approach there? Is this kind of a long-term story with this character?
So he is, the big bad for the opening arc for sure. I'm thinking what I can say that's not going to be a spoiler. So he has a connection to Naomi, I can say that. And the reason why the reason why he does what he does in the first issue, that then kind of kicks off the entire first arc, we kind of reveal in bits and pieces kind of as we get further into the arc. And for somebody who does some pretty, or tries to do some pretty atrocious things throughout the first arc, similar to Black Adam, at a certain point you start to understand why he's doing it, and it starts raising questions about how far away from becoming someone like him any of the superheroes on the DCU main Earth are. It holds a mirror up to them to a certain degree. And so as for what's surprising, I'm not sure how to answer what's surprising about him, but there is more depth than initially appears. I mean, the dude sounds like just like a dumb bruiser in the first issue, but there's a lot more depth to why he's doing what he's doing than meets the eye. So hopefully by the end of the first arc, everyone will see the questions the Justice League are asking themselves. Maybe the readers will ask themselves some questions too.
Yeah, and he does come off as, you know, I mean, he lives up to his name. He comes off a little bit of a brute.
Yeah.
But he does have a little, you know, and God, I'm gonna get so much. He has a little swag. All right, he has a little, you know, just a little bit. He's a little different in that, like, it comes across, which is nice. I like that. You know, we talked a little bit about, you know, why Wonder Woman is not, you know, Diana is not part of this, and obviously people who have read Death Metal and kind of the End of Future State, you know, will understand like why, and she's kind of on this other thing. But you know, Hippolyta is such a unique choice, especially coming out of Future State, because you know we have Nubia and we have Yara and we have, like, there's so many now that, like, this Wonder Woman side of the universe is as full as it's ever been. You know, was there talk of like using one of those kind of newer characters to have as the quote unquote Wonder Woman of this book? And because you guys went with Hippolyta, what does she bring to the table? Because it's such a unique choice for this team.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had conversations about, you know, like there's a Themyscira sized hole in the team, and how, or Amazon, you know, hole in the team, and how could we address that? And one thing we were kind of sensitive to, or at least it came up in the conversation, was one of the things that's really cool about the DCU is just all of the legacy characters that have taken on various mantles throughout the history of DCU. You know, it's happened with Batman, it's happened with Green Lantern. Go on down the list, and almost every major hero at some point has had one of their, you know, psychics or other legacy characters, you know, take on that role. And I think it's really cool what is being done with all of kind of like the breadth and depth of the Amazonian characters in the DCU. But I think it's interesting to have not have the legacy character be the one that takes the role in this opening arc, because for those, you know, readers who haven't been keeping up with what's going on with Diana, I'm not going to spoil it, but if you have questions, other people in the DCU have questions, and her mother has a question about what's going on, and that's a different kind of interaction than, well, Diana is gone. Who's Wonder Woman now? You're on the team, as opposed to Wonder Woman's mother coming in, actually being, she's a character that to my knowledge, and I'm sure people who have read the books more than I have can point out how I'm wrong about this, but she's not a character that's spent a ton of time in, you know, man's world, in the modern world outside of Themyscira or Amazon Island, or whatever the proper name for it is. And this is something that finally brings her out and force her to engage with the world. Again, thinking about this question of, well, you know, justice for whom, she comes in wondering if justice for Diana is one of these things that needs to be addressed. So we want all of the characters to be there for a reason. And her reason for being there is tied directly into the fact that Wonder Woman has been such a core part of the team for so long, and now she's not. And she comes kind of demanding some answers. So it's I'm not saying that, you know, therefore there will never be another, you know, Wonder Woman taking on the role in the Justice League. But for this opening arc, that's a really interesting story we wanted to kind of take a look at.
No, for sure. Like that's one of the most interesting parts of this. You know, and this particular issue, you know, we don't get to dive into that because of course we're setting up some other things. We're setting up and things like that. But that reveal was one of the most like, That was kind of the reaction. I was like, oh, okay, I can.
She's also a character that not a whole lot has been done with her recently, and so it was an opportunity to kind of flesh her out, and she offers a different perspective and a contrast to what Diana's always been like the ambassador to the rest of the world, and Hippolyta has a slightly different attitude about it. And again, in the first issue, she doesn't play a huge role. She really kind of comes in with issue 2, and moving forward, or 60. I think of them 1, 2, 3, 4, but 59, 60, 61. But as we get further into the arc, her role becomes more manifest, and her perspective gets voiced more loudly. So it's a different relationship. It's interesting that as much of a point of contention Black Adam joining the team is, she's the one who really kind of comes at adversarial compared to any other character. Black Adam isn't necessarily there in as much of an adversarial role as people might expect. She comes in wanting to wreck house, and I'll leave it at that.
I mean, I feel like that's a very typical parent reaction.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that's very much like if my child was like, well, where is she? Like, what's happening? Yeah, I would be knocking people's doors down. So yeah,
sure, man. I also have 2 young children, and I agree entirely.
Yeah, I'm right there with her. So thank you so much for this time and talking about the book. This has been great. One parting thing, because you did create a new villain. And it's one of those things. It's got to be cool to create a new character that is just like, hey, like that's my stamp. You know what I mean? Like it's got to be cool. So DC, we're about to have the Snyderverse take over things on HBO Max, like the movie universe. There's a bunch of sequels coming, right? So the DC movie universe is not going anywhere. And if they bring Brutus into a movie, who do you want to voice him?
Oh man.
I feel like it's you created him, so it's only fitting you get to choose who voices the character.
Seth Rogen.
Oh my god.
Either him or John Cena, one of the two.
Please let that happen. Oh my god. We will make the pitch here. We will make the pitch
Excellent.
here. Seth Rogen. I just love though also those 2 choices because they couldn't be more different. They couldn't be more.
Honestly, Rogan thing's clearly a joke, but I'm kind of into it. Now thinking about it, I'm kind of into it.
Right? I mean, Pumbaa was like Mad Pumbaa. It'd be great. He's awesome. But yeah, I mean, Cena, I think could be
got some swagger.
Yeah, that's be awesome. Oh man. Okay, so that's a perfect place to end this. Of course, if you want to check out the whole issue, which I definitely recommend you should, it comes out in comic book stores and on digital platforms this Wednesday. And you can check out all of Marquez's work on Comixology. Also, definitely check out Batman Superman because that was great as well. And I definitely appreciate all the time. Thank you so much.
It's a blast, man. Thank you so much.
Okay, Matt. You did a great job, buddy. Great interview. You're muted, buddy.
About Darkhawk.
Darkhawk. Oh, that's what you come back in with? Okay. Great ending. All right. That'll do it for this episode of Comic Book Nation. We want to thank our guests, Joe Manganiello for popping by, David Marquez for sitting down with us. We want to thank all of you for tuning in and sharing with us. This has been our biggest, best show ever. If you guys like what you see, we have a lot of new people watching today. Please follow us on Twitch. We put up new episodes every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern on Twitch Live. If you don't have Twitch, we're on Facebook Live. We're on YouTube Live. Or if you missed the show live, you can always find it, episodes Wednesdays posted on Comicbook.com. If you want to follow the show, we're on your favorite podcast platforms. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Google Playlists. You can also tell your smart home devices to fire up Comic Book Nation podcast, and they'll get it going for you automatically. Thank you guys again. Thank you to all our guests once again. We will see you guys next time. This is Comic.
And follow us too. Follow Kofi, follow Matt, and can I just say one more thing? Can we please just say so much love to Jim Viscardi, the one and only, for getting us.
No, yeah, this is out of control. Yeah. Shut this down. We're done. All right, Comic Book Nation, we'll be back.
Thanks, guys.